Broadcasting from the Red Bed Plains, you are now listening to Through the Prairie Smoke.
Does everybody remember how to do this?
The formula and format? I hope so. So are we ready to kick this off?
Yeah.
Yeah! Let's do
fine.
it.
I'm sorry I didn't send an outline to everyone, but I think we should just talk organically. Sarah, now that we've done this once, you're super confident, right?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
She has it
I
down.
am.
What are you lighting up over there?
So it's a blackbird, cactus wren,
Mm-hmm.
as you can see, as Tyler can see, and Sarah can see.
Sarah's here again. We're
Yeah.
glad you're here, Sarah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. I'm
Hi,
so glad
Sarah.
to be
How's it
here.
going?
I had so much fun last time.
I hope we have
That's
as much
good.
fun this time.
Oh, it will be.
We will.
Sorry.
We both came at him like...
No negative Nancy's here, thank you
yeah.
very much.
I think I've smoked one on the show before, but this is different.
Okay.
This is Cigars Daily's little team up with Blackbird Cigars.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they took the blend and changed it a little bit. They're double fermented,
Huh.
the wrapper. And then they changed some of the blend. But anyways, it's freaking good.
Yeah.
It's box pressed too.
Oh,
The other
I see
one's
that.
round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference in taste?
So I'm
Between
not
the
the
two.
best at taste notes, but I will say that I can tell this one's different. It softens the flavor that I'm
Yeah.
getting from the original one. It takes that, but softens it and extends it. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense, it
does.
stretches it out. So, anyways, but it's pretty good. So
Nice.
that's my leaf.
That's your hot
for
leaf today.
Yep, that's my hot leaf.
It's hot leaves when I'm on.
I just opened up a new tin, and I've never tried this before.
Can I look at it?
Yeah.
Look at the...
This is another Cornel and Deal.
Ah.
This is a limited edition small batch. And it is the beast.
It's nice packaging.
That's the thing about tobacco. They're selling you atmosphere.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just like wine.
Oh, of course.
It's all about what the bottle looks like.
This, the beast, is based on, I guess, Aleister Crowley's
Oh, interesting.
preferred blend. He apparently would just soak tobacco in some alcohol and smoke it after
Sure.
it dried. And maybe we'll do a podcast on Aleister Crowley, some weirdo into sex magic. Wrote a lot of books, secret societies, things like that. Secret societies are weird because it's normally just
Yeah.
dudes cranking off out in the woods somewhere, and that's all a secret society is.
I would love to come on and talk about that with you. For real.
Okay.
You'll get the feminist perspective on Aleister Crowley, which...
It's not great. He was not a good person. Into drugs, into altering consciousness, trying to do telepathy. He had some contact somewhere, and he drew what it looked like, and he drew essentially a gray alien before gray aliens were popularized by probably Whitley Strieber. But anyway, this small batch here, the components are St. James Perique, Red Virginia Cavendish, Black Cavendish, and Dark Fired Kentucky. So just smelling the notes off of this when you first smell it, you can definitely smell the Dark Fired Kentucky, and then also it smells like scotch to me.
Oh, yeah.
Let me read this. Printed right on the can. Legend has it that Aleister Crowley, famed adept of the Order of the Golden Dawn and founder of the Ordo Templi Orientis, is purported to have made a habit of smoking rum-soaked perique as a meditative aid. To date, many a dabbler has pursued his own manifestation of this concoction out of sheer curiosity. We have too. In the spirit of the nefarious occultist himself, we sought to tame the beast within our own rendering of the recipe. Soaked for 7 days in spiced rum, we might share our vision of it with the most inquisitive and brave of pipe smokers. And limited edition, y'all. They only made 7,777 tins,
Wow.
and I got 3,411. And
Nice.
3,412. I ordered 2 cans just in case I really like it. In case I don't,
I feel you there, brother.
I brought my cheap corncob pipe to smoke it out of, because
Yes,
if
they
it
do.
ruins my pipe, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Sure.
Missouri Meerschaum, corncob pipe, entry-level pipes. If you want to try out pipe smoking, get a Missouri Meerschaum. It will smoke different. It'll get hotter in your hand, but it's a good way to try out pipe smoking. And if you ruin it, throw it away and get another one. They're like $10. So,
Can you pass that? I want to smell it.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, me
I can.
too. I want to smell it
All
too.
right.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Oh, how chivalrous.
When I grill, I like to smoke the Kentucky Fire Cured, the KFCs.
Oh, the KFC.
The KFCs. I was wondering if it was smelling like that when you were talking about it.
What do you think? Do you think it does?
There's other stuff in that that's making it the sweetness come out.
Yeah.
And on those, it's more just the fire cured smell, the
So-
campfire smell.
You get the smoky, that's the fire cured. The sweetness, that's the Cavendish, and probably the rum.
Yeah.
But then the alcohol, obviously, is the rum.
Yeah.
But with everything else, it smells like a smoky scotch, in my opinion.
I can smell the rum smells like rum to me, which I think is part of the sweetness for sure.
Yeah. Oh, Sarah, what hot leaf have you brought?
Well, I brought another snowy owl tea, and this one is a green tea because that's what I'm drinking a lot of lately. And this one's really fun because it's called ultraviolet green tea with violet and lemongrass. Then the little notes say lush green tea packed with antioxidants and the floral sweetness of violet and butterfly pea. This blend creates a stunning natural blue color you can turn violet with a squeeze of lemon. So it's like color changing tea.
That is fascinating.
Right?
It's the butterfly pea that does that, right?
I think so.
How
Yeah.
do you know that?
Because when I would, my little cocktail.
Oh,
drink,
yeah.
there's a gin that you can buy. I can't think of the name of it right now. That is blue, and it has butterfly pea in it. And that sounds so weird.
I know.
It's like we took a bunch of butterflies and they
PEA.
all
PEA.
lined up
Yeah.
and peed in this thing. Anyways, but it's a blue gin, and then when you make cocktails and you use citrus, that acid changes it like a more violet. It's really cool to watch too because it instantly changes. Have you done it with the tea?
I have not.
You
I
need
have
to.
not. Well, I looked. I don't have any lemon juice at my house. So, but it tastes good without the lemon juice.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
It's
I
just
actually
blue
don't
and
like
pretty.
lemon in tea.
Me too.
But for scientific experiment, it'd be fun to watch.
Science in the kitchen.
I know, it's great. So that's what I brought, and I'm happy. And I've got my Santa Fe honey again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Have you mixed any in already?
Yes. This one
So-
is rose honey.
Rose honey.
Yeah.
Does that mean it was sourced just from bees who selected roses, or that it was blended
I
with
think it's rose flavored. Yeah.
essence of rose added?
Yeah.
Is green tea caffeine free?
No.
Okay.
I think it has a little bit less caffeine than black tea, but it still has caffeine.
All right. And we should make a note on where we are. We're back in my garage in Yukon. And,
Oh yeah, somebody's mowing.
It is the.
Oh,
That's a weed whacker, I think.
Yeah.
But this is the first time in like 2 weeks that the sun's out instead of it being raining. So
And it's beautiful.
it is beautiful outside. We got this smoke going, so hopefully the mosquitoes will leave us alone because it's plenty wet for them. My magnolia tree is a little droopy out there. I think it is saturated.
Yeah.
It's had enough water. But
Yeah.
there's more in the forecast. So, but anyway, you're going to hear some outside noises. You know how we do these podcasts. Today, our subject matter, there are people who are graduating, going to university, getting degrees, whatever they're doing. But in honor of the graduating spirit,
go ahead.
we're going to talk about haunted schools and libraries and theaters and things like that with some Oklahoma interest and general stuff. So that's what we got.
Yay!
Nice.
You want to do universities first?
Universities.
You're just trying to get me to be the one that starts
I
talking
am.
first.
Kick us off, Sarah.
Ooh. Okay. So, as far as universities go, most of what I have looked at is University of Oklahoma, because
Yep.
that's where I worked for many, many years, and that's what I know a lot about. Or we could talk about Bowling Green theater stuff. Do you
Theater
know
stuff.
about the guest at the Bowling Green?
I don't. That'll
Okay.
be news to me.
Bowling Green University
Which is where?
in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, they have a tradition there where the stage manager, before they ever start a production, before opening night, the stage manager goes out into the theater on the stage and invites Amanda to come to the show.
Okay.
Because if you don't invite Amanda to come to the show, bad things happen.
Okay.
Stuff falls, lights break, bad opening night, all of this stuff. And there are a couple of different stories about who Amanda is, and also a couple different stories about whether it's Amanda or Alice.
Okay.
So I think at one point it was Amanda, and then now it's Alice, and I don't have any idea why that would change. Like,
I
Sure.
think I'd be safe and just invite both.
right, exactly.
Whoever happens to be listening,
Yeah.
you're invited.
But Amanda Alice was a theater student who died in a car crash on the way to the university to get her award for Actress of the Year.
Oh my.
Yeah. And
Is there
so,
a year?
oh, let me find it. Hang on, I have my wrong website up. You'll have to edit this out. Me looking.
Since I'm going to edit this out, I will tell you this is creating a huge amount of smoke.
I noticed, yeah, it's like a freight train over there.
Yeah, I'm sitting over here like, I don't know if I can see through that.
Then I'm over here, like, this thing is struggling. Once you char it from first light, it's just that leaf just starts going down the line, and it gets hard, and it doesn't burn right, and it
Yeah.
tastes nasty. Like, I can taste it. It's gross. And so I'm almost wanting to set this down and do another one, but I'm going to keep struggling through it. Then it also won't keep lit, so I'm constantly having to mess with it. I haven't had an issue with these. That's why this is surprising me.
Oh.
I think it has a lot to do with humidity. Obviously,
It's
the big
so
thing with
humid.
cigars. I think it has something to do with that.
So 1920s.
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 Okay.
Is when Alice died.
Or Amanda.
Or Amanda. And that's the thing, like, these stories are wild. Because if it was 1920s, how likely is it that it was a car crash that killed her?
Yeah, unlikely.
Right?
Well, I mean, maybe pedestrian.
Yeah.
But still.
And so maybe Amanda was killed in a car crash and Alice
Was the driver.
was something else. Who knows, right? Like, that's the whole thing
Yeah.
with all of these stories.
Yes,
is
of course.
They change over time. And I also
Yeah.
think, like, we've talked about this before, but in the U.S., these stories are not going to be more than 100 years old.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, they're not as entrenched, I think, as
Mm-hmm.
some of the stories that you would get in Europe or whatever.
There's people that have died from horse carriages, like not from tipping over, from like
Sure.
actually getting hit in the street from a run over by a horse or a carriage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could still be true.
I think that that's really interesting. That they invite, they're inviting the ghosts to come,
Yeah.
right? Which is, you would think it would be the opposite. That you wouldn't want the ghost to show up.
In our episode about ghost lights, the ghost light used in theater, you always had this light on constantly, and there were several theories. One was to ward off bad spirits, but then it was also for spirits to do their own plays on stage.
I haven't heard that
Yeah.
one. That's so cool.
So anyways, it's kind of like that. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of superstition in theater, but that's a cool story. I have never heard that story
Yeah.
before.
I also like that there's this sort of beautiful tradition around it.
Yeah.
That, you know, it happens every single show. It's part of the, like, culture of that
Yeah.
theater program and that institution.
Yeah.
And I'm always in love with, like, rituals and traditions,
Sure.
even for stuff that I don't necessarily, like, believe in,
Of course.
because there's meaning behind it, even if you don't believe in, like, the reason that people are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things too. It's like, why do you do this thing? It's like, sometimes it doesn't matter why you do it. It's just like, well, this is what
Yeah.
we do. It's just how we start. How
Yep.
we start them.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it comes down to superstition.
Sure.
Or it's just, this is the way we do things.
It brings people together, too. It brings your team together before you go on stage.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I made a huge mistake because I'm not. It was my first show to direct, and I didn't know all of those things. And so, what did I say opening night when we opened? I did not say break a leg like you normally would. Anyways,
The usual correction is good luck. Is like,
oh, see, it was something like that. And everybody was all like, Dustin!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, since we're bringing that up, I have a whole list of things about superstitions here. So, likely that's the one everybody's heard of. You don't say good luck to somebody, you say break a leg, because that's not going to, if you say good luck, you're going to break your leg out there. Well, if you say break a leg, you're not going to break your leg. The theater people are weird. I feel like I can say that since I'm a theater person. But theater people are weird. They have some funny ideas. And when I started my theater education, I was very materialist. It was very, reality is what you can see and interact with, and nothing else matters. But that's not helpful for an actor to think that way. So anyway, ritual, purpose, meaning, and all that stuff, you have to create it. It's up to the actor, the director, and all that stuff to tell this story. But looking into why do we say break a leg? Did something happen? What's the original story on that? And it's lost to history. But looking up some other things, apparently dancers say merde. Is that how you say?
shit.
Yeah, it's shit. Merde. Because they don't want to break legs. So
Oh, interesting.
it's not saying break a leg. In my notes here, I've got manifesting. If you say something over and over and over again, sometimes you can manifest it. In Spanish, mucha mierda, or lots of shit. And supposedly that calls back to a time when, how can you tell if a show was successful before there were cars? Well, people were arriving to the theater in their horse-drawn carriages. And you could tell if there were a lot of people at the show by the piles of shit in the road.
Wow. That's great.
Which I love. So, you wish everybody mucha mierda for your success for your theater show.
Much shit.
Yep, that's right. Opera singers, apparently they spit or they mimic spitting, and it's thought to ward off demons or troublemaking. And then there's the cursed play, which is Shakespeare's Macbeth. And you're never supposed to talk about Macbeth on stage because you will bring that curse to your performance. And this was something I was completely unaware of when I was a new theater student. So I'd be sitting backstage or something. I'd be like, people would be talking about the Scottish play. Like, what are y'all talking about? Why are we talking about it? What's the Scottish play? And they'd be like, Shakespeare's play with the witches. I'm like, Shakespeare's not Scottish? What are you talking about? I'm an idiot when it comes to Shakespeare, too. But the people I was around in theater took that so seriously. The whole standing in a circle, you spin in a circle 3 times and spit and whatever else. Really unusual.
I think theater is such a cliquey world, though.
Of course
that
it
like,
is.
And I can say this because I did competitive theater, guys. That's what a huge nerd I am.
Sure.
Hey.
So I feel like some of those things are really just designed to like create an in-group and an out-group.
Yes.
And so it's, Dustin, you were also saying like kind of like a bonding thing.
Yeah.
Right? Things that are just for the theater and outsiders don't know about it.
Yeah.
And theoretically that serves to bring you closer, but then you have people who are new to it and they feel kind of on the outside.
Yeah. And that's one of those things doing community theater like Dustin and I do now. It's like you want to create the broadest appeal to bring in more people because, you got to have people to act in your shows. You got to have people come to see it. So, you want it to be welcoming for everybody, but also it's like, hey, it's different. Like what we're doing here is different.
Well, it's usually once somebody new comes in and just kind of gets their feet wet, then it's like everything starts clicking.
In my opinion, it's intuitive. Like you feel, like you want to be part of the group because it's so different and interesting. I don't know.
But that's also how cults work.
That's how cults work. It is, yes. theater will break your brain. Especially like reading a script to directing to acting. It's active imagination. You're creating your own reality. When we did our Spirit Light episode, we talked about ghost lights. Dustin, you mentioned ghost lights earlier, and that's a light that's always on, even during performance. Usually it's backstage, but sometimes it's right out in the middle of the stage, and it serves a practical purpose.
Safety light?
Yeah, it's a safety light. When the college stoner that was forced to paint the backdrop fell asleep back there, and he wakes up and everybody's gone home, you don't want him wandering over and falling in the orchestra pit, right?
Yeah.
You know, so there's always a light on for safety.
I like the scenario that you had there.
Right. But the whole thing about the theater is this place of atmosphere. You know, you walk into this giant auditorium or this giant theater or however your stage is set up, and it's like, what happens in here? All sorts of things happen in here. The possibilities are endless. That would attract the feeling, the romantic feeling is that it would attract all sorts of things. And, you know, if there are ghosts hanging around that were involved in that, of course they want to do their own plays and hang out in here. So leave a light on for them. That's great. It's a nice thought.
Yeah.
And then finally, another theater superstition: you're not supposed to whistle when you're on stage unless it's
Part of the show.
part of the show. Yeah.
Wow.
And that whistling, I mean, there are lots of things superstition wise, like you're not supposed to whistle at night. You know, don't whistle. May attract something to you. You might get hurt. It goes into more of that atmosphere, getting back into walking into that theater space, like especially if it's empty. It can be haunting, hanging out in the theater all by yourself. The noises sound different and all that. All the things are amplified. I mean, that's how theaters are set up. It's supposed to do weird things with sound. Yeah. So it's one of those place things.
Well, and you also have all the sets and things like that too, where if you don't know what to expect from a particular production, there are things that you could see in the back that would look very mysterious and weird.
Sure. What do they do with that?
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of the only set piece in the insanity of Mary Gerard was
the chair?
Was the chair.
Yeah.
Which is creepy. So
That was a great play.
It was a great play.
Toot our own horn here.
It was you, buddy.
No.
I went to school at Oklahoma City University, and of course there were all the things about the Berg Theater is haunted. There's somebody in the Berg Theater. But at the time, that was not something I was really into, so I wasn't going around collecting the stories and asking a lot of questions.
Well, it sounds like the names change anyway, so...
Names change, yeah. It's one of those things, too, when you talk about local hauntings and things like that, and your point of we're not all that old. Like, they talk about there was a director who died of a heart attack on stage during a performance or something like that. It's like, that was just in 1974. You know, somebody knew that guy.
Yeah.
You know, so we want to be sensitive to that. But, you know, custodians go in there and they hear stuff. Just, like I say, the skeptic in me is like, of course you hear stuff. You're supposed to hear things in a theater. That's how sound works in a theater.
Acoustically set
Right.
up. Yeah.
But it's much more fun to think about hearing whispers or whatever.
You know, a lot of the stories that I've been reading about OU and other libraries and stuff like that, to the point of it not being that long ago, a lot of them are recent enough that someone related to that person is still alive.
Yeah.
You know, someone who knew that person in their life is still alive. And I worry about like the implications of that for people.
Yeah.
You know, there's a story at OU about a kid in 1986. That was like 3 years before I moved to Oklahoma. And my dad taught at OU. There was a story about a kid who climbed into one of the dumbwaiters in the dorms and got caught between the dumbwaiter and the wall.
Yeah.
And died horribly. I mean, just horribly.
Because nobody knew he was in there, huh?
Yeah, somebody called. Well, he wasn't. You're not supposed to climb into those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
He was unsupervised and climbed in, and somebody called the dumbwaiter up because they wanted to send their laundry down or whatever. But you know, he was like 13 and his dad was an adjunct professor at OU. And so there's this ghost tour that goes on at OU all the time that they talk about this kid. And it, to me, I'm like, that was not 100 years ago.
It's too recent.
It's too recent to talk about and to turn it into a ghost story.
Right, yeah.
Right? To turn it into something that's entertainment.
Yeah.
And I sound so judgy right now. I don't want to.
I get exactly what you're saying, because it's like, you know, these aren't, sometimes like the historical figures are also part of our collective imagination. We can imagine what that was like, but this is someone who would be our age.
And then that also leads me to think, like, how does it become, I mean, if that can turn into a ghost story in that short of an amount of time, like, how do these tragic stories, because it's almost always some horrific death, turn into a ghost story? Turn into, I heard a whistle somewhere and it must be this kid.
Yeah.
Right, because it just seems too recent for that to,
right.
I don't know.
Sure.
Well,
How much of this is exploitation, I guess, is what I'm saying.
True.
And how much is legend and myth, which maybe at one point was exploitation, but is not anymore.
Sure.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
When it comes to film genre, I love seeing exploitation from the 70s, but it's really cringy when you see modern exploitation. I mean, that's what was happening in the 70s too, but it was different somehow. Not really.
It probably wasn't different to people who were observing it in the 70s.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. I don't know.
Sure.
I think to play out, going off of like it's always a tragedy. Something tragic happened. You know how they say a ghost is someone that has not moved on, like they're stuck.
Someone has unfinished business.
They have unfinished business, and a lot of times it's because their lives were ended too soon. And that can be said for a lot of things, but in certain circumstances where somebody dies, like a young kid dies or something.
Suddenly and unexpectedly.
That just suddenly and unexpected and out of their control, obviously. And then most people are like, okay, well, it's a ghost with unfinished business. So then, then it kind of plays into the, like that kid, he was just playing hide and seek, or he was just playing and dies tragically, and now they're like, well, he's
Terrible
still
accident.
roaming around because he never got to move on because he wasn't prepared to do that. He never. Anyways, that's just my take on it. But
no,
it is
it's great.
exploit. No, I do feel that it's exploitation, of course, especially putting it into a ghost tour.
Yeah, I have this horrible, cynical idea that, like, a lot of ghost stories are not about the ghost. It's about having the opportunity to talk about this horrific, tragic thing that happened, right? And it's just the ghost gives you a way to be like, almost like gossip, right?
Yeah.
It would be cringy to relish in the gore of this tragic death. But since there's a ghost maybe connected, now we can talk about how terrible it was. Sure.
I mean, I feel kind of bad saying that because it really is like, I don't know. It seems very judgy. And I want to see another side of it that isn't so like, human beings are gross.
And that's something Dustin and I talk about that all the time, because we say it in this podcast all the time, like what we are talking about, this potentially was a former human, this person had hopes, dreams, desires, and we just don't know. There is I think it's a local theater here in the state, but it's just, I think the ghost name even is Zane. And so when I was looking at it, I was like, well, that's got to be from the past 20 years.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's not the original ghost name, and there's not an original story. But the story at this theater is that there were a lot of trap doors. And there was this actor who was just full of himself and nobody liked him. He was not integrated. They didn't do enough ritual and ceremony to bring him into the team. So anyway, he was just full of himself. And at the end of the play, he's got a quick disappearance, and he would go through a trap door, fall on a mat, and roll out, and then come out for the curtain call. Well, the people who were supposed to put the mat down didn't. And so when he fell through the trap door, he hit the bottom and broke a leg, or broke both his legs. And then he couldn't get out. And then they close up for the weekend. He didn't make it to the curtain call. They thought he was mad and just left. And so they just closed up the theater, put the ghost light out, and then, weeks later they can smell him. But there's no evidence for any of that.
Yeah.
It's just the story.
But isn't that a cautionary tale?
Of course.
That's the other thing for a lot
folklore,
of these
yes.
that are that I feel like are probably not real. I'm using air quotes.
Sure.
The story about this kid is for real, actually happened in the newspaper.
Yeah.
But something like Zane, it's is it just a cautionary tale for that theater to be make sure you know where your people are before you lock up for the weekend, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dustin, I noticed you've got a new cigar here.
Yes. Yeah.
What are you smoking now?
So I've smoked this one on here as well. It's that Lost and Found. Don't sit on the furniture.
Does it have Nicolas Cage on the label?
It has Nicolas Cage.
I was wondering who that was on the label. I can see it.
I don't think it really is him, but it does look like Nicolas Cage.
It does.
It's so crazy. And he's just on this couch, but it looks like it has the plastic like your grandma would put over the things. Well, I mean, obviously that probably plays into the name of it, but it's pretty funny. It's Nicolas Cage sitting on your grandma's furniture smoking a stove. So when they say don't judge a book by its cover. Well, I've always been the opposite. I'm a sucker for art, so I've bought a lot of trash in the past just because the cover looked really good, or
you
the
mean trash
artwork
books?
looks really books or products.
It has
I'm a
excellent packaging.
sucker for the packaging, and I'm like, oh man, that's so freaking cool. How could it be bad? And then you get it and it's bad.
Yeah.
So I have a librarian's take on that quote, if you're at all interested.
Oh, okay.
Of course we are.
Please, at least in the most recent decades, judge a book by its cover. Publishing companies pay people a lot of money to make a cover that will tell you what is inside the book.
Oh, okay.
So that you are not buying a book that isn't to your liking. Because it doesn't do them any good if you buy a book and you're like, I thought this book was about blah, 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 on Amazon or whatever. So go ahead and buy a book based on the cover. If you like dragons and there's a dragon on the cover of that book, you just buy it and read it.
Okay.
That's what I have to say.
What about painted edge pieces? What does that tell you? The end papers when they're painted.
Nothing. It tells you that the publisher wanted to spend a little bit of extra money on that book.
Packaging.
Anyways, I did see the packaging on this cigar and saw the artwork, and I was like, I don't care if that cigar tastes bad. I'm going to try it. But luckily, it was one of those situations where it turned out pretty good.
Well, that's how you found Blackbird, too, just based on the label.
Man, yeah. Favorite cigar, and that's how I found it, was just the packaging. It got me. And the whole marketing.
Yeah. Going to the movie rental store, horror was always in the front corner, and you'd walk past it to get to the cartoons or whatever. So it was something, all of those covers on the movies were always so scary, and what are those movies about? I don't know if I can watch those. And so when we could start watching them, it was like, this is it. This is what I'm into.
Yeah.
I had the opposite experience. I have a very visceral memory of being a little kid and going to the grocery store. And at that point in time, when I was little, the grocery store had VHS tapes, on an end cap, that you could just buy.
Yeah.
There was a VHS tape, cassette tape for Critters.
Mm-hmm.
Critters, and it was the one with the guy in the toilet. Is that right?
No, okay, no, that's
It wasn't
not
Critters.
That's not Critties. That's Ghoulies.
Ghoulies,
Yeah.
okay.
And that is a good
What
artwork. Yeah.
Whichever one it is, I'm not surprised I confused Critters and Ghoulies. But
well, no, I see.
Yeah, of course.
I think I've even done that. But,
Yeah.
but I know what,
Yes,
I know
no, I
the
believe you.
artwork you're talking
I
about. 'cause
believe
it's
you.
really cool.
But yes, so that artwork, I would have to, every time we went to the grocery store, like, close my eyes because it was so scary to me
Yeah.
as a little kid. And then I went through a period of time where I would, like, run out of the room the second I flushed the toilet. I had never seen this
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
just
you
the
had that
art on the
image.
cover,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
something's going to come out of there and get
Yeah.
me.
Yep.
Critters has a good cover too. The original Critters.
What's the cover of
first-
Critters? Because
first
maybe I'm
movie.
thinking of that as well.
It has the big critter on the front.
It's a
and then
big
it has-
fur ball with a
yeah.
giant grin.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm mixing those two together in my brain.
Yeah.
Now I got to
They're
look
two
up the
different,
cover for
Ghoulies.
Ghoulies.
Ghoulies
Different
is like a
movies,
little, almost like a ventriloquist
Goblin-looking,
dummy size
yeah.
thing in the toilet.
I'm going to look it up, and then I'm going to have
And then it
nightmares.
says Ghoulies like in lipstick or something across the
Mm-hmm.
doesn't it or something.
All right, so we are going to post... Oh, yeah. We're going to post pictures of these images on our Instagram.
That's right. Check out our Instagram.
So go check
for
out our
this
Instagram.
unrelated site.
Yep, we're going to put the cover of Ghoulies and the cover of Critters.
This is not a pop culture episode.
All right, well, that was
said
a
that in about every episode.
That
Of
was
course we have, yeah.
real
I mean,
sidebar, but...
It's one of those, when you talk about the weird and the paranormal and the effects that it has, it's helpful to have things that
Relate.
everyone has access to.
Yeah.
Well-
Not everyone has access to movies, VHS, things like that.
Yeah.
Most people can do a Google search. If you're getting this podcast, you probably have access to the internet and can check
Yeah.
out some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, but doesn't it all end up as pop culture anyway?
of course it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of it,
Yes.
ultimately, at some point, is going to be on a VHS in the
Yeah.
grocery
Yeah.
store. Not a VHS, guys. Maybe again. I don't know. The kids
Hey,
are into
they're-
CDs.
hey,
Who knows?
They're on the climb. VHSs are coming back.
It's
People are all about VHSs right now.
so
Oh, good. I have a whole bunch of Disney VHSs that I'm hoping are worth a couple $100.
Are they black diamonds?
I do have
You're
one.
a
I
millionaire.
have one black diamond. Yeah.
as
That's not a real thing, folks.
As a person who works in used media, I don't anymore, but I would get those calls like, I've got brand new shrinked, wrapped Black Diamond Disney VHS. Like, cool. Like, will you buy those?
Good for you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to bring them right up. And I'm like, hold on.
How much do you think you're going to get?
I
I'm
sell,
giving you 10 cents a bottle.
yeah, I sell these for $3 a piece in my store. These are shrink wrapped. Don't care.
Yeah.
I saw it sold for $15,000 on eBay. Well, you should try eBay then.
But
'cause-
did it sell?
Right.
You got to look
Right.
at the
Right.
sold. You
Yeah.
can't look at the.
And then it's like, if it did sell, that's actually money laundering. They didn't actually buy that VHS. That was something different. That's really
Somebody was
weird.
buying something that was in that case.
Yeah, yeah.
That was called Black Diamond.
So anyway, everybody's got Disney VHS. Sorry, Sarah.
I know this.
How most of those people feel that used to collect those, and they would buy them just because they were going back into the vault.
Well, that's why
They weren't
that
going to
is
release them anymore.
genuinely why I have so many. That is the truth.
With Disney specifically, sometimes you have to join the club to get some of those. Like DuckTales Treasure of the Lost Lamp was only
didn't know
available
that.
on VHS through the Disney Movie Club. It's not that way now because it's on DVD and maybe even Blu-ray, and I'm sure you can stream it
Or
on
you can stream it on the Disney Channel.
Channel.
Disney Plus or whatever it is. All right. So are they going to sponsor us now, Disney? I really hope they do.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Dustin does.
I'm
is
just
not
going to
Disney
stay
fan.
silent.
Look, you're not going to take their money if they give it to you? No?
Yeah.
Your
come on,
convictions
Dustin.
are that
I might
strong?
take Disney's money.
That's what
we're
I'm
getting.
saying.
I don't
Yeah.
like giving Disney money.
There you
but
go.
unfortunately, if you breathe, you give money to Disney.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But
Star
okay,
Wars.
we're no.
This
we're
is
not here
also
to
not a
hate.
politics
We're not here to hate Disney. Yeah. Let's stop. Okay, let's stop.
Our demographic is 35 to 40-year-old men. So,
Hey, I got some ladies.
yeah.
I got some librarians listening.
Yeah.
to one episode. I don't know how many more they listened to.
Well, now it'll be 2.
Yeah. The librarian should really like the first 4 episodes.
That's what I tell them. I liked it. That's why I'm here today.
All of our episodes are great.
They're beautiful.
And very accessible.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
Anyway.
So speaking of libraries,
Yes.
have you guys heard about the Willard Library? Do you know about the Willard Library?
You sent me a text about that
Yes.
or mentioned it, and I had not, and I didn't look it up after you mentioned it.
Well,
Because I knew you would tell us
Yeah,
about
well, I have a personal story about the Willard Library.
it. You said you had no personal story.
No, it's not that. It's not personal like that. I didn't go there, but I worked in a college library in the early 2000s, and one of my coworkers, who was of course a librarian, was like, "Hey, have you heard about the Gray Lady?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "This library in Illinois, is it Illinois? Peoria, I think. Evansville, Indiana, not Illinois. Peoria's got another. Peoria Library has another ghost, so
Okay.
we can talk about that one too.
Yeah.
But Evansville, Indiana. So she was like, "Yeah, I've been obsessed. They put up cameras in their library because they have a library ghost called the Gray Lady, and the cameras are on 24 hours a day, and you can just watch and see." And this was the first time I'd ever heard of anybody doing something
Yeah,
like this.
this is
I mean,
like live webcam in the early 2000s.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's very common now for ghost hunter people to have like a live webcam of whatever, but it was new, and our whole shift, we would have the Willard Library's ghost cam up,
Nice.
looking for the Gray Lady, and we saw orbs, guys.
Yeah?
We
Yeah.
did see orbs.
Cool.
They need to clean more.
Yeah. Believe me, I know. But I'm trying to make this exciting for our listeners.
No,
But
that's
yes,
great. It's great.
So yeah, so we were really obsessed, and for like probably an entire summer, we watched every day looking for the Gray Lady. All we ever saw was orbs.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and it's one of those funny things about ghosts, too. You know, they don't literally come out during the day.
Well, I mean, our library was open late.
Oh, okay.
So, and the cameras are on 24 hours a day. So you could get on at 2 o'clock in the morning and see if the Gray Lady was there.
Okay.
At that point in time.
So did they ever, have any recording of her? Did anybody ever catch it?
What
on
a good
recording?
question. I have
That'd be
all
interesting
these,
to look
I've
up
seen all
and
these
see.
stories about staff that have seen her and
Yeah.
experienced her. But their website does not have I don't think, let me double check. I don't think their website has clips of, places where they're like, "Oh, this is her." But the cameras, by the way, the cameras are still up. They're still running on their website if you want to
So
go
they
look
still
for
have
her.
it
Oh,
going?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow, that's
cool.
For sure. They actually
Yeah.
have more cameras now than they only had one at the time. Now they have 6 cameras in 6 different parts of the library looking for
they're
her.
getting big now.
And each camera has a little story about, when you go to click on it and look at it, they each have a little story about what was seen in this part of the library by a staff
okay.
member or whatever. So
And is it a government library or is it school?
public
It's
library.
public library.
Yeah.
Now, when was the library built? Do you know?
139 years old.
Okay. How
So-
old is the store? Do you know? Like the Gray Lady.
So there's, as is typical, there's 2 potential Gray Ladies.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
One
Same
of-
library or? Okay.
Same library. So one of them is related to, they've got a handout on their website, which is very convenient for me.
Smoke alarm guy.
Oh,
That thing
hilarious.
is putting some smoke out.
So the
Hilarious.
beast is very smoky.
the beast is the beast.
So 1937 is the first time anyone reported seeing her.
Say it one more time.
1937.
37.
So
Yeah.
here's my next question.
But
where
then
I
there's a
was
second
going
one. Yeah, go
with
ahead. Mm-hmm.
that, and then you can continue. Sorry. Where I was going with that is, was the ghost librarian in Ghostbusters?
Oh yeah, I knew we were going to talk about her.
Based off.
Mm.
Does he? I should have looked that up.
I have no idea, but I
If
know
that was just
how
their
to
own thing,
internet.
or-
The first one that was noticed in 1937 was supposedly the daughter of the philanthropist who started the library back in the late 1800s. And she was unhappy with the way things had been going when she died. And so that's the first story, is that she's coming back because she's mad. But then there was also a children's librarian that died much more recently, maybe in the 80s or the 70s. And she is very helpful. I love this stuff, you guys know already. Staff members report that, like, if they start to stumble, because she passed away from falling off a ladder in the building. And
the building?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so if a staff member is, like, on a ladder and they feel wobbly, they can feel a hand steadying them on the ladder.
Okay.
And so she does stuff like that. She's very helpful, of course, because she's a children's librarian.
Yes.
Okay.
So now I'm going to look up the Ghostbusters thing because I need to know.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, wait a minute.
That's probably the most famous library ghost, huh?
Yeah.
A movie from
It's the
I would
first
think,
thing
yeah.
I thought of.
a movie from 30 years ago.
Well, they used actual footage of that library and then kind of just incorporated it
Oh,
into the movie.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Am I right? I am right.
All right. The Ghostbusters wiki.
We know what we're talking about, folks. So this is the Willard Library, right? Is that
Yeah,
what we're
Willard
saying?
Library.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Go to their website. It's very cool. You can look for the ghost.
That's cool.
I am looking to see. You guys can chat about other stuff, but I just need to know this.
Oh, guys, we can talk about a little touch base on that last episode a little bit while she's looking that up.
Sure. Do we
You
have...
sent me that video of that mountain lion
Yes. Hollering.
hollering on that game camera.
Yeah.
Oh man, we talked a little bit about that in the last episode. How they sound like either crying babies or wailing women, and that is dead on. If I heard that in the woods, yeah, La Llorona is coming after me.
The wailing woman.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not the wailing woman after you, it's the mountain lion. So either way, you should remove yourself from the area.
Yeah.
Make yourself look big.
Yeah. It's funny, not to get like off the beaten path here, but so you'll have to reel us back in.
We don't.
But
we do this
That's
all the
my
time.
Try
job?
to do this real quick. But
I got looked at when he
We-
said that.
Yeah, you're keeping us on track, Sam.
we
The woman's work is never done.
one of the guys from my work, he likes to go hiking and up in the mountains in Colorado and stuff like that. So we always talk about like if he's ever run into this, have you ever seen this? What do you do, or do you know what to do, and all this?
Yeah.
And he takes like bear spray, you know, and
Yeah.
and he knows what to do, like what they say to do with a bear. And then if you see bobcats, you know, usually they're not too big a deal. But
I'm
or
worried about, yeah.
if you run into like an elk or a moose on your path or something like that. So anyways, we talk about this stuff every once in a while, and it's funny because he said they'll have educational signs on these trails and stuff that kind of explain that stuff as well. Like, you encounter this, you know, blah blah blah, do this. But when it comes to mountain lions, it says pick up anything that can be a weapon. That's all it says.
Yes.
He said it's hilarious. Like, but there's serious signs.
Yeah.
But he said, yeah, you'll read that sign, and that's all it'll say is protect yourself
Yeah.
the best you can.
Be ready to fight.
So,
Go for the eyes and throat.
yep. There was a show
Oh,
that
I found
used
it.
to be
Sorry.
on. Okay, no, reel us in.
No,
Okay,
no.
all right.
I found it.
Yeah.
Now, this is not from...
This
As
is the
a-
internet.
As a librarian, I do not consider this to be a reputable source. But I don't necessarily consider it to be not reputable either.
Sure.
I just have not done the research necessary. But it says... The apparition of former librarian Angeline Vernon Milner. She was the university, so this is Illinois State University. University's first full-time librarian back in 1890. Employees have reported eerie feelings, sightings of Mr. Fogg, and even discovered books that inexplicably fell from shelves. A psychic even claimed to see a purple column of light, which is why the librarian is purple.
Purple. Okay.
Yeah. So theoretically, that ghost was the inspiration for the librarian ghost in Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go,
According
folks.
to
Illinois State Library.
WROK News Talk.
We can't be the only people that have ever wondered that.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it was surprisingly hard to find. So
The movie's 30, almost 40 years old.
It's a cult classic. Well, would you consider that a cult
Ghostbusters?
classic?
Absolutely.
Or, yeah, but would it... Like, when I think of the word cult
Yeah,
classic,
I
I
think
think of B-movies and, like...
it was
the
initially
Toxic
too popular
Avenger,
to be a cult classic.
Yeah.
I think you have to
So it
be
was pop
not
culture.
popular when it first comes out.
So it would be actual pop culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cult classic, I think of, like, Toxic Avenger and
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes, and stuff like that.
Trauma
yeah.
movies. And,
So, I have a question to pose the group.
okay.
So, this may be off topic. It is off topic, sort of. I don't have a lot of background knowledge in ghosty stuff. This is really the first time I've ever, like, actually looked into any of this stuff.
Okay.
What I have noticed in the research that I've been doing in the past week or so is that there's a thing where kids can see ghosts. What's that about?
Well, I know that you and I have talked, and this is something that Dustin and I talk about. Kids are more open, whatever that means. In my interpretation of that is they have not learned, they have not been forced by Western education to say the literal reality is all there is. So kids automatically are assuming that there could be something else out there.
Same goes for, like, animals.
Their perception is different.
Yep.
Interesting.
The big argument for why kids can see things and adults can't is because you have been taught to ignore them as an adult.
Interesting. That's pretty... I mean, that makes sense.
Well,
I get it.
sounds true, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
It does. I'll buy it.
you know, let's get deep here.
Okay.
Okay. You know how, like, when you're a child, your imagination is big.
Sure. When we were kids is different than being a kid today.
Right.
You know, so.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, so, like, Harlan, when she was younger, like around 4 years old or whatever, we would play with her toys, and every other word out of her mouth was pretend. Pretend this is, pretend this.
We're really pretending here.
So when I was younger, I had a big imagination, and man, I was huge into Ninja Turtles, and like playing Ninja Turtles, like I could do that all day, you know, and it was just like this world that, like, I was in my own little world, and then I would have friends that would come over, and they saw the same things I saw, you know, and stuff like that. But then going back to when I would play with Harlan when she was 4 years old, and she'd have her little action figures out and stuff like that. Like, I enjoyed it, so don't get me wrong, but it's harder when you're an adult. You're like, it's just something's not there anymore. So you get to a point where, like, I couldn't do it for hours. Like, there's no way. I wouldn't say I'm bored. It's just you're not
Theater.
enjoying it
Isn't
as
theater
much.
the same thing?
Yeah, but it's like, well, I guess you could say that, but I think when you're doing a theater process, you are learning lines and you are learning actions, and you're not really seeing it. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, you're not, like, the enjoyment, well, you can't say that either, because I do enjoy acting, but like, you don't, but you're like going off of a script, and it's actually like a process. But I think when you're playing, like, with your action figures as a kid, you know, that's not script. You're building this world, and I guess you can do that as an actor too. I
have so
don't
many
know where I'm
thoughts.
going,
No,
okay?
I love this. I have so many thoughts about this. So one theory that I have is that the world that she's creating is not a world you're creating. You have to go live in her world.
Okay.
And that's not as interesting to you as a world you're creating.
Yeah.
So that's one theory.
Yeah.
I think about, you know, my husband and I now, and I don't want to out Tyler, but he's been involved in role-playing games. Mm-hmm. And that is a group of people who are creating a pretend that they're all doing together, and they're all existing in the same world together. So they're doing a let's play pretend.
It's a world that they've all built together.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are rules in that world, and everybody understands the rules because everybody knows. Well, right. But eventually.
Supposedly
Maybe.
I will.
So is that what makes it? That's what brings the adult aspect into it. Then is guidelines and rules.
That's a big part of it. I
Structure.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm very anti-rules. Rules are meant to be broken. I'm all about freedom.
But see, you just need. This is. I don't know if this should go in or not. But you need a GM like Mark, who his approach is to say from the very beginning, you can do anything you want to do, but you have to ask me how to get it done, and I will tell you how to get it done. Mm-hmm. Right? I will tell you what you need to roll to make that happen.
Yeah.
So if you're like, I want to pull a hamster out of my pocket and like throw it at this guy's head, and you don't know whether hamsters exist in this world, all you do is you say to your good GM, I want to take a hamster out of my pocket and throw it at this guy's head. And your good GM will say, roll to see if you have a hamster.
Okay.
And then roll to see how good of a hamster thrower you are.
Okay.
Right? Like there are rules, but there aren't rules.
Sure.
And gosh, Mark will be so proud to hear me doing this right now. But anyway. But yes, and so it's are we all pretending in the same game? And I think that's one of the things that like this idea of ghost stories kind of ties into,
yes, of
right?
course it does.
Because
yes.
it lets us all, real or not, it lets us all play in the same game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why it's easy to go into haunted places and play the game easier.
Yes.
Because you are already prepared. You have an idea of what the rules are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But to a kid, those rules aren't there.
That's right. It's all possible.
So maybe that's why they see things that we don't see. Not necessarily that they made that into their world, but that they just don't have netting around the world that they created, like adults do playing D&D or whatever.
There's
you know what I mean?
line.
Like you
There's
have a
line.
net
Sure.
that that world is covered with this net. That way you still have those rules that are controlling, like you say, okay, I want to throw a hamster at somebody, but you have to make sure that hamster exists in that world.
It's doable.
Or you have to build it in that world,
Yes.
but everybody else
So that
around
everybody
you
else
has
knows
to
the
know
hamster.
that it exists. But in a kid's world, it's like, hey,
Right.
this is my world, but there's no net. So then when this thing comes out of the next room and floats by,
They
and
can
you're
just
like,
integrate it.
you know,
Anybody
That's
else
so
see
interesting.
that? I have heard the opposite, though, as well, where the adults all see something and the kids don't. One story I just read recently, I'm reading this book. We've talked about this fella before. Cutchins is his last name. He's got a book called, he's got a 2-volume book called The Cosmology of the Soul, I think. In the first couple chapters, he talks about this seance that's going on, and the two adults see just this blue cylinder suspended in the air that's glowing, and it's about the size of a man's forearm. And the adults could see it, don't know what it is, but the kids could not see it. And it's one of those things, I wonder if they had been more prepared, would that blue cylinder eventually take on a human form through their lens? What are they seeing? Like, if these people were primed to not believe in ghosts, well, there's something there, but I don't know what that is. I don't know. But then why couldn't the kids see it?
Or maybe they could see it, but it didn't look unusual or worth commenting on.
Maybe so, yeah.
Like it looks different to them because they were able to integrate it better.
Maybe so.
Man, I just am speculating wildly.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's what we mentioned before we started recording. There's not really an expert in this field.
Yeah.
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
There are things out there to experience.
yeah.
Put the phone down. Experience nature. And who knows, you may encounter a nature spirit that you may interpret as a fairy, or Bigfoot, or an alien.
I enjoy just looking out the window
Sure.
at the land, and even knowing it's boring most of the time, and we've seen because we drive the same route
Yeah.
every time.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love still looking out there and still like, is that Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Did it?
On my
Is that-
way here today, somebody cut down a tree in a fence line, and as I was driving up on it, like in the distance, I was like, what is that dude doing standing over there? You know? And so
Yeah.
I'm like watching the traffic, all the people from Texas flying by me too fast. And then I'm like, what? And then as I get my chance to look over, I was like, oh, that's somebody cut a tree down. They left the stump because it's grown part of the fence. You know, they can't take it out without taking the fence out. But, you know, there's stuff to see out there. Put your phone down.
Yeah, put your phone down.
Going back to talking about unfinished business, why ghosts might be here. I've got a skeptical friend. He doesn't listen to the show, but I'm not going to use his name. But he sent me a text, and he's like, doesn't everybody die with unfinished business? Like, why isn't it just a state fair of ghosts around all the time, if that's the case? Like, and my response to that is, well, it very well could be, but we can't perceive them. You know, it's only during special circumstances.
Yeah.
Or after a certain ritual that prepares our mind or whatever it is to experience that. Which is one of those things like, you talk about alien abductions, we don't want to talk about abductees, and you talk about people who see ghosts and stuff like that. We don't want to label those things, we don't want to categorize them, we just want to say experiencer. That's something you have experienced.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
And it may be unique to you. It may have happened for you. We just don't know. And then, is there somebody nearby? And is it, if this person has these types of experiences all the time, if they hang out with a new group, does that group suddenly start to get experiencing that stuff as well? Which will come to liminal people. There's sometimes where it seems like people can help open that up in other people. So,
Yeah.
crazy. Perception.
Man, not to get too... No, I won't get too philosophical. I'm just going to say, are there things in life that only you experience and nobody else experiences that you know for sure are real and that other people would agree are real, right? Like if I say I was driving down the street the other day and I saw a Tesla truck that was paneled in blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether anybody saw that or not.
Mm-hmm.
You certainly didn't see it.
Mm-mm.
But if I told you I saw it, you would be like, yeah.
Yeah, somebody vinyl wrapped their truck.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
How is that any different from me saying I saw a ghost that you didn't see? Like, why do you not believe that, but you do believe I saw a blue Tesla truck?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this sort of existential, right,
It's what
element to all of this.
What your belief system that you have crafted over your entire life experience, you are referencing. Those are your templates that you're pulling from. And Dustin likes to talk about what is the anchor, what anchors us to the reality that we know, and how do we then fit in this new information, you know. I believe you saw a truck. Maybe you got mixed up on the brand. Maybe it was a high-end day, you know, that was blue and not.
Unlikely. Have you seen a Tesla truck?
Yes, I have, unfortunately.
Wow, we stopped talking about universities and libraries altogether, but it's still interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh, so OU has a ghost tour?
So OU has a ghost tour. I briefly thought about contacting Jeff Provine, who runs the ghost tour at OU, but I wasn't sure what kind of time we had to prepare and all of that stuff to see if he would come talk to us. He's published books.
I was going to say,
OU's ghosts.
I was going to, I've got right here, mention Jeff Provine. Haunted Oklahoma.
Yeah.
He puts out books every now and then. He does book signings at some of the local stores around here. I did not know he gave a ghost tour.
So I thought that I sent you guys a link, but maybe I didn't. And if I didn't, I will send it to you. But there is a link that you can go to on OU's website. it's his ghost tour, but he's just videoing it, right? Like him going through all the different buildings and telling the stories. And so, anybody can go and watch that. You don't have to be an OU person to see it or whatever.
That was going to be my other question. So it's like, is this offered to students or is this the public or?
So yes, you can do, it's offered to the public. I think it does cost money.
Sure.
But he also teaches a class where students go on it.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I just thought he was an author.
No, yeah.
Cool.
It's really interesting to me. I don't know him well, but because of being an OU community, you kind of know everybody. So I sort of knew him before this all started for him.
Okay.
And I think he wrote comic books before, actually.
Nice.
And yeah, then he just like suddenly got really interested in ghosts on OU's campus and started doing all of this research. And so when I talk about, for example, when I was talking about the kid who died in the dumbwaiter, I got that from Jeff Provine's stuff. What I like about him is he will tell you which ones are real, and giant air quotes, and which ones are not. So there's this long-standing, since I was in school at OU, which is about 115 years ago, story about a student who, so in the stacks in OU's library, Bazell Library has a section of the library that is as old as the university, which is now almost 120 years old.
Okay.
And in that section of the stacks in the 70s, I think it was the 70s probably, they put in glass cube flooring so that you can see down into the level below, all the way down. I think it's 5 stories.
Wow.
So every story has these glass cubes in the floor. And they're those big, thick, the ones from the 70s. And there's been this story since I was in school there that a student once fell through the glass floor and died, and that student haunts the stacks. That never happened, right? And Jeff tells that story and then tells that never happened. Like, some of these things are about things that actually happened, and some are just
stories.
Just
folklore.
stories. They're just fun stories, you know? Because students like to make stuff up and scare each other and whatever.
Also, go hang out in the library. It's cool.
Also, go hang out. If you're in the area, please go to the OU library and ask a librarian to take you around and show you the stacks, because it's very cool. It's where they store all of their books that are like over 100 years old. So it's all their really old books, and it's just kind of a neat area to poke around. The stacks, the floors are off kilter from the main library, so you have to step down or step up into them.
Okay.
It's great.
So there is the other. That would be a hard liminal space if you are stepping up or stepping down.
Well, it
into...
also, it's the old library connected to a more recent edition, right?
Yeah.
And so you're stepping from the 1980s, right, into the early 1900s.
Yeah, that's cool.
You're basically stepping 70 years into the past, which is, I love that you said that. That makes me excited now. I want to go back and look at it through that lens. Oh my gosh, I'm time traveling right now, you know? So yeah, very cool.
That's neat.
So maybe we'll talk to Jeff Provine sometime and see if he'll visit with us. Or we can just pay and go on the tour.
Yeah, we should
He
just
probably
go on the
wouldn't
tour.
let us record while we were on it, but...
I met him at... it may have been when he published his first book. I don't know if it was Haunted Oklahoma City or Haunted Norman or something, but he was at a book signing, and you had the library experience, I had the bookstore experience.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure he would not remember me, and I'm not sure what he looks like.
He's a nice guy.
But I've shaken his hand before.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Cool. I don't know if, we hang out in the Kingfisher Auditorium. I've never had a ghostly experience in there, but, people get creeped out. And there's one of those things, a lot of these stories that I found from the local theaters, like everything was fine, there weren't any stories or anything like that, but somebody then starts to remodel, and then you get the people who are like, I was tearing up the floor in there, and I could have sworn somebody was behind me, and that's typically how then these things go. So it's like a new owner of a building, just like my dad's building. He wasn't big into ghosts or whatever, but the people he hired to redo that upstairs, they were like, it's real weird up there. And had a person was like, I'm never going back up there again. You're going to have to find somebody else. So, it's weird.
Yeah.
I was mentioning the library ghost in Peoria, Illinois. That ghost disappeared when they fully remodeled the building. Just disappeared, which I thought was sort of unusual because I feel like you do normally hear it the other way. And maybe there was an increase in activity during the process of remodeling, but basically that just was gone once they remodeled it.
This comes into like haunted objects as well. Was it a specific corner? Was it something specific that went away? And that's one of those things too. Like when you redo a building, how much of it can you redo before it becomes the new building? It's like, it may look like the old one, but it's all new stuff.
The ship of Theseus of ghosts.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Do I need to explain Ship of Theseus?
You better.
The idea is that you replace a thing part by part by part by part by part. And then at some point, all the parts are brand new. But is it the same thing? Right? Did I do okay with it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So yeah, is a library still the same library if you replace every single part of the library?
It makes me wonder if, like, residual haunting, where it's the same thing that happens over and over, maybe at a certain time of the day,
like this thing that just plays out.
Or that just plays out over and over. Does that residual energy, you hear two people arguing, and then a door slams, and you hear that throughout the day, or at certain times of a day,
3 o'clock every day.
And that happens all the time. It's just a residual thing. Does that building that it's happening in get torn down and turned into a parking lot? Can you be standing in the parking lot at 3 a.m. in the morning when it would happen and still hear a door slam and people arguing? Or does it go away?
So that theory is sometimes referred to as the stone tape theory, like the minerals in the area record that energy and then play it. Something triggers it to play through.
So are you saying material like the plaster on the walls or the drywall or whatever absorbs that?
This
and then
is
once
not
it's
very
gone,
scientific,
it's gone.
by the way.
Anyways.
But that's the argument. The stuff has to be there for it. But then also there can be haunted items, supposedly. So was it just that ghost was tied to a certain book, and when that book finally got discarded, it went away?
The argument
But why
was
wouldn't
over.
it be the land?
This is the thing about. So, I love thinking about this theory in particular because it's like, it has to do with place, But like thinking about,
Wouldn't go down that road if I were you.
yeah, right, yeah, it's a haunted road. But it's one of those things. If it is the stuff, like think about Oklahoma's Dust Bowl. Like all of Oklahoma's topsoil ended up in Chicago. So, but what were if there were spirits? If we are entertaining that idea, were they tied to the dirt that was on that property, or is it the place? And then, as the world is spinning and traveling around the sun in a cosmic perspective, the planets have to line up until you run along that same spot every year. When you come back around 365, now it triggers because it's something universal. It's something bigger than just this laptop in this library.
What about ley lines? They don't move
They don't move.
when the dust moves.
No.
So you could be anchored in place, but you don't necessarily have to even be on a ley line, right? You're anchored in place based on where the ley lines are.
Sure. Well, let's define ley line. Define ley line.
Don't look at me.
Define ley line.
I'm gonna look it up because
Okay.
I'm not gonna get it right.
So there are a lot of different things when it comes to ley lines, and there's a fella, I want to say a book about ley lines is called The View Over Atlantis, and I can't remember who wrote that. But he talks a lot about ley lines.
Would a former ley line be like the Bermuda Triangle?
It crosses one or two.
Okay.
So there are a lot of theories, like there are salt trails. When people carried salt from certain places to get it to other places, it's like that salt traveling that way with all of those people over hundreds of years, that created a ley line.
Oh, okay.
Potentially. But it could also have to do with, look, we're getting ready to get real far out there, because also we're getting at where the pyramids in Egypt line up on the ley lines, and do they harness some sort of power? Is the earth actually a battery that you can harness power from the ley lines with the right receiver?
Yeah, there's something to do with like energies.
So it's not
Earth
a
energies.
geography. It's not geography. It's not a. You guys aren't speaking of like natural lines.
Well,
In
Debatable.
The earth. Of
this is not
like
latitude
of
and longitude.
stone or so.
No, but sometimes those are important features in the ley line.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes you would find particular features across every ley line.
Okay.
What does the internet have to say?
It has to say a lot of different things I did not previously know. I had always thought of ley lines as my understanding of ley lines, of the fictional idea of ley lines, right? No, so not to say they are for sure fictional, but
Let's say
in fictional
the
sources,
romanticized.
right? My experience with ley lines is reading fiction that talks about them.
Okay.
Okay, and my understanding of that had always been magical energy. So
Sure.
they can be used as like sources of magical power. That energy runs through them, and that sometimes that has to do with like magnets, like the way this is again fiction says.
Yeah.
But in reality, that does not come up in the stuff I'm reading about right now. It says that a lot of ley lines basically are based on archaeological structures and where archaeological structures are positioned, and that there are straight lines between ancient, like pyramids, archaeological structures, and those lines carry, quote, energy. Unclear what type of energy or how it works exactly. So that's what the internet says.
Sure. And a lot of great temples and stuff. We'll even talk about modern cathedrals. Well, not modern, but medieval cathedrals and stuff like that. Sometimes those sites are chosen because it was already a religious site that was on this ley line. You can see that, especially in places like South America, they just built their church on top of a giant pyramid or something that was super old. But it's already this religious site, so it makes sense for it to continue to be a religious site. So this is ley lines. You can talk about them where they are using geography, but geography doesn't matter. It is. And
Can new ley lines be made? Because wouldn't
That's a
they,
good
from
question.
day one, have to be made?
So here you're talking about perception and how we view the world and things like that. And why, if you've got a bundle of salt on your back with your crew that's traveling this way, why are you walking that line in particular? Because it's the shortest distance? Or is something naturally propelling you, without you even being conscious of it, that direction? You're following that path, and then suddenly the path is there, and then we just keep using that path. But it kind of goes into, with my thing with the stone tape theory and the people carrying salt, for example. That's kind of in my opinion, part of the stone tape theory, because you've got so much energy. What are people carrying? They're not just carrying salt, they've also got their hopes and dreams and whatever else that they're thinking about while they're hauling this. Whether they are employed or whether they are, that's just what they do until they die, So.
But in that theory, like here in Oklahoma, we have the Chisholm Trail.
Sure.
Would the Chisholm Trail be a ley line.
It would be
considered a ley line if you have had. I mean, that is a famous trail that was taken by tons of people.
Sure, mostly cattle.
It was basically a highway before a highway.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a hard one to kind of like. What are the rules and guidelines to a ley line?
Yeah. And when you hear about ley lines, a lot of the research has been done in Europe, and that again has to do with just America from the Western perspective is a very young entity, you know. But sure, there are ley lines around here. But ley lines could also have something to do with the dragon paths in China, where you see the lights in the sky, or UFOs, and where ley lines intersect. Those are typically, John Keel would call those window areas. I don't know if he ever talked about ley lines. And there are many different perspectives to look at. Maybe it's what souls use to traverse when they exit, you know.
The thing I was reading said it had a lot to do with helping alien spaceships navigate to Earth.
Yeah, that's the real popular. Yeah.
So.
But, you know, you have to believe in aliens before that's a good theory, so.
Yeah.
I kind of, like, see it as more of the Earth's pull. So more of a gravitational, magnetic...
Sure.
Because I just keep thinking, like, water flow. Like,
sure.
The way water flows, not just the water we see, but also well water, like water...
Underground, yeah.
Underground.
What the aquifers are up to.
And if that plays into it, what's at the core of Earth, like what's underneath that may be contributing to what's going on above.
As above, so below, buddy.
Yeah, dude.
Well, and that's why I said that my understanding had always been that it had something to do with like actual geology, like magnets and things like that, magnetic forces.
I think I'm too grounded.
I'm going to be extremely vague, but just for demonstration purposes. You brought up the Chisholm Trail. Let's say the Chisholm Trail is a ley line. We wouldn't have known that before. We would know that by looking at what's along that line now.
Yeah.
Because it looks like the cattle were shuffled along those lines by cowboys, but what made that lead cow, apart from the cowboys on both sides keeping them in the herd, what path did that lead cow take, and why did it take that path? Was it aware something was influencing it potentially through this ley line?
And that would be the point.
That would be potentially that cow. This is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous speculation, but that cow could have unknowingly got into that energy and walked that line.
Yeah, it was pulled by something that we do not know.
And there are people that argue that point, and then there are other ones that say that's not possible because ley lines are straight lines, and the landscape it does not permit people to go in straight lines or cows to go in straight lines because of mountains and things like that.
I didn't realize they were straight lines.
That is another school of thought.
Oh, I see. Man, wow.
So this is another. What do we mean by a ley line?
Yeah,
depends on who you ask.
It depends on who you ask. I mean,
see how
there's
grounded
there's mathematical definitions.
I'm like going to the very simplistic definition of what a line is. Yeah. So
you're trying to make it too literal. Ley lines are more of a feeling.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm getting at.
I mean, that is the thing. They're about like energies. I don't know if you can hear the air quotes in my voice. You probably can. And like those are by nature nebulous, right? Like they're energies. Is it vibes? Is it
what I'm saying is a long time ago they made the mistake by calling it ley lines. They should have put ley paths.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, but then when you're making your map on your fantasy mystery television show and you want it to make a pentacle because the thing you're trying to find is in the middle of it.
I see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned about ley
really
lines.
makes sense.
I learned about ley lines by reading a book. I want to say it was the Goddess, the Grail, and the Lodge. And it was all about, this was around Da Vinci Code time, so it was all about that stuff, symbolism and ley lines. But Atlantis, like I said, is all the Atlantis myths, the good ones anyway, in my opinion, talk about ley lines as well.
So, this is off topic.
We are way off topic.
Yeah, I also don't feel competent about ley lines at all.
But
And I'm the one who brought them up.
you
so
are. Mm-hmm. But there is one of those things, and this is kind of back to the topic, and I'm going to bring up Cutchin's book again. In his introduction, he talks about poltergeist activity typically being tied to a young woman entering a certain age. And he's like, it is so ageist, it is so sexist, it can happen to anyone. But traditionally, with these stories and how they are told, it is a young woman, or it is a girl entering womanhood that triggers the poltergeist activity. But
that's because periods are really spooky, guys.
Not gonna
Men do not understand
Yeah.
them, and it makes them feel a little bit afraid.
Yeah.
And this is why you want a woman on the podcast sometimes.
But I also grew up with a sister too. Anyways,
I also agree with paranormal activity can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
It has to do with perspective, mindset, possibilities, things like that. And, speaking from my experience, this is stuff I'm into. I like the story. I liked them a lot when I was very young. I thought I saw ghosts all the time. So it's just weird. But, you go to college and the material world and, the Western's perspective on everything. It's like the things you can't see are not real. And that's not necessarily... There could be more meaning. You don't just... even things that you can't see have an effect on you. I use Star Wars as an example. Like, those original Star Wars trilogy, that's just such a cool story. But it's full of symbols and the hero's journey and all that stuff. And that kind of goes back to role-playing games as well, because when you are building this formula, you have an idea of where the story goes. And for it to be a story, you have to have certain accomplishments. You have to get the items or whatever else that's going to help you further on. It's also your shamanic journey when you go to the underworld and you are rebuilt by your spirit guides and then have to traverse this other world to make it back to reality. Story development.
And the hero's journey and some of these tropes that come up over and over again, they connect, to a lot of the ideas that we talk about with regard to things that aren't quote real, or like what my experiences in quotes as well.
You can look for the formula, and it's, in my opinion, it's really clear in The Mandalorian, because here you are, here's your level, you just made it to this level, now you gotta have your boss fight at the end, and now you go to the next level, The first boss we battle, when we beat that character, it drops something. I want that. It dropped that for a reason. We are playing a story here, we have to have that. Pick that up. Without that, you can't go anywhere. It's the key. So anyway. Libraries.
Yeah.
Is every library built on a ley line? Sarah, can you confirm that for us?
Yes. Yeah. Town planners, they pull up the map of ley lines. Well, in truth, the way that it actually works, Tyler, is that when a library is built, a new ley line is created. That's how it works.
Okay. Wow.
She's getting that through direct knocking from her ancestors, the Fox sisters.
Yes. Exactly.
So I have another question.
Sure.
I have noticed that a lot of the ghost stories that I am seeing in libraries specifically, I know we're supposed to be talking about universities, but a lot of these are libraries on university campuses.
Of course they are. That's why we're doing
this is
Right.
related. Yes.
If you are going to college, you are going to... I don't care if you have the internet. You need to go spend time in your university library. Just go do that. You'll meet people. You'll meet cool people.
And you might see a ghost. So a lot of the sightings in public libraries and in university libraries are in the areas of the library that relate to local history, special collections, which is also often local history type stuff, genealogy rooms, archives. Those are the locations in the library where so many of these sightings occur.
Okay.
I mean, there are examples of others,
Sure.
like children's departments get them a lot, which is why I asked that question of like, kids can see ghosts, because I hadn't heard that before. But like outside of that, it's predominant in my research, my loose internet research.
Sure.
that's where they show up.
That is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not necessarily like where someone died, right?
Yes.
It's a part of the library that has old stuff, question mark?
That's kind of what I was gonna jump in on. That is because those more of your books, your older books, are going to be found in those areas,
And that's the human aspect of the libraries as well.
Yeah.
In the genealogy things like that attracts living people thinking actively about the deceased.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, both, sure. Because especially like with archives, you actually have old stuff, right?
Sure.
But the people who frequent those parts of the library are interested in the past.
Okay. Yeah.
And that may leave them more open to experiences from the past, right? Coming into the present. I don't know. I just thought it was really...
Yeah.
Yeah. You're onto something.
What's that about?
It's interesting. It's a good observation.
We were talking about ghosts that repeat, or scenes that sort of repeat. And OU actually has one of those as well. In the Arts and Sciences building, which is Ellison Hall, it used to be the campus infirmary. And there was a kid about 10 years old. I think this was in the 40s or 50s. Stories are inconsistent. So he was roller skating. Either he had an asthma attack or he was hit by a car and was rushed into the infirmary because he was right there by it when it happened. And ultimately died of whatever had happened to him. And so you can hear him roller skating in the building. I didn't find any evidence that it happens at specific times consistently, but it isn't, there's no like interaction. It's like he's just like doing his thing. Do you know what I mean? He's not trying to scare anybody. He's not trying to interact with anybody. You just hear him skating up and down the halls, doing his deal. And that's another one that's like, yes, that really did happen. There really is a real kid. You know what I mean? Those are interesting to me too. Those things that just residual. That's the word I was looking for.
Stone tape or residual hauntings.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Crescent Hotel on this podcast before. It used to be a girls' college. And it has a residual haunting as well, supposedly. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yeah. So it'd be the 4th floor, where the Sky Bar is located now. But there is a story of a young lady that got pregnant.
Yes.
And she jumps off. She kills herself off the 4th floor.
This is the story.
Yeah, the story that they tell. And that she has been seen by several people at a certain time in the evening. I'd like to say 10 if my memory, but I could be wrong. So, but say it's 10. Yeah. And that she, they have seen her, like the apparition of her standing there and then jumping off. And so that's kind of a residual haunting they have at the Crescent during the women's college period. The Crescent is very interesting, and I suggest anybody that likes this stuff, and if you haven't already, check out the history of the Crescent Hotel, because it was a hotel. It was Norman Baker's cancer treatment facility during the period of the women's college, I think, which was in the 30s. In the summer, I thought it was interesting, like school would go from September to June, and that would be the time for the women's college, and then they would take their summer leave, and during the summer hours it would be a hotel. It was multi-purpose at that time. And in the Crescent, where they start the ghost tours, they take you into a room on the 4th floor, which is across from the Sky Bar. And they take you into a room in there, and there is tons of the women's college memorabilia stuff like in there with little stories, tidbits, and stuff. That's pretty cool.
I would say the biggest draw to that is they've leaned into the ghost stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're building off of they're marketing off of.
But it is an interesting historical
and
building
then the ghost
as well.
Yes, yeah. Like, it's not just put the ghost aside. Even if you're not into that stuff, if you're just into history, that hotel, I recommend staying at that hotel. It's on the historical hotel
Register.
Yeah. And so they have to follow guidelines. The rooms are still set up, everything. A lot of that hotel is just the original hotel. And so, but they also have not just the ghost stories, but they also have the history of the building, of when it was a cancer facility, when it was a hotel, when it was a women's college. So it has a lot of history behind it.
And it's, we talk about America being young, and it's a building from when America was young, and things are brand new for this perspective in the area, so.
Built on a hill in Eureka Springs, Arkansas in 1886.
Yeah.
It's cool looking at old photos of when it was built or during the building, and how it's sitting up on a hill. There's not as many, now there's buildings and everything around it, but like there's early photos of. I'll put it on the Instagram.
All right.
There's a lot of stuff down there.
Well, and that's one of the things too. If one of the places in your town is having a lot of success with the ghost stuff.
Suddenly there's more ghosts.
Yeah, get a ghost in your building too.
Yeah.
I mean, that town's probably built on a ley line. With the springs and everything.
You potentially, yes. Yeah.
You want to do some quick hits?
Yeah, quick.
So this is all sourced from Oklahoma Haunted Houses, but it has universities in here too. A popular school here in Oklahoma is Bird Creek School, Alhuska, Oklahoma. It was built in the early 1900s. And what makes it haunted is several people, they said you can go. Now, this is an abandoned school, so I can't say go do it.
Yeah.
But people have made their way into it. And I guess there's still stuff in there from the school, like chalkboards. And there's a chalkboard in there. And it's been said that if you go in there and say, write your name on the chalkboard, and then leave the room and come back, give it not days. I mean, you can go back within an hour or something like that. Give it 30 minutes or something. Go back in the building, and it whatever you have written on the chalkboard has been erased. And they say that is children of the school
Cleaning the board.
So that's the main kind of little story with that school. Rogers State University is in Claremore, Oklahoma. And in this one, an elderly indigenous person, an apparition, has been spotted several times wandering the grounds outside of the university. So that's a little story there. Tyrell Hall in the University of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a piano has been heard playing in the hall. Several people have heard it several times. It says many students have reported hearing a piano playing on one of the upper floors late at night. It's most commonly heard in the stairwell in the center of the building, between the ground floor and the basement. Space. Yeah.
The in-between space.
Yeah.
Stairwells are liminal.
It says whenever someone went up the stairs to check the noise, the piano would stop playing. The last one that I'll jump on. No, I got two more actually. Sorry. Willock Mission in Millerton, Oklahoma. Now, I looked into this one because I thought this one was interesting, so I did do some further research into this one and never could find where this event actually happened.
Yeah.
So I don't really know if that's true. So I'm just going to read what they have on their website. Like I said, this came from Oklahoma Haunted Houses. The school dates back to 1800s, sits on 35 acres of land. According to local legend, the hauntings at the academy began when a man broke into the girls' mission and murdered them. Visitors have reported. See, it doesn't. And I never found one news article. I don't think. Yeah. I don't know. There's nothing to support this. Visitors have reported that the walls and the trees bleed. And apparitions have been spotted sitting in chairs or hanging from trees. One story involves some teenagers who tried to steal a vase from the cemetery and then went and got in their car and it wouldn't start. And then a few minutes later, they decided, we better put that vase back. So they put the vase back and the car started just fine after that.
Well, I believe that one.
That's related to UFO stuff as well.
Yeah.
I thought
Y'all don't mess with
cool.
cemeteries.
I thought it was cool, the story of the intruder. So that's why I did some research into it, but I never could find any solid, like, just the story. You think that would be in newspapers or something. Okay. And maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but I couldn't find anything in my deep dive.
Well, the algorithm can't sell you anything when you're looking for home invasions. You're just going to start seeing, like...
The internet's broken.
All right, what's the name of the school?
It's the Wheelock Mission.
WHEEL?
Yeah. All one word, though. Wheelock.
Okay. I'm going to use my library and resources.
Now, when I was researching into it, it does have a pretty good little history of the mission. Like, while you're looking that up, I'll hit the last quick hit here.
Yeah.
Southeastern Oklahoma State University, that's in Durant, Oklahoma. It's a public university. It's believed to have a number of haunted spots on the campus. A little boy's apparition has been spotted wandering around the basement. The story behind the boy is that there used to be a pool underneath there and he had drowned. And then it's rumored that a janitor had died in the school and he has been seen as well. And they've also heard stuff being slid across floors and footsteps. So,
do you have a year for the murder?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, this thing is very vague.
Okay.
Because all it says is, according to local legend, hauntings at the academy began when a man broke in. But it has no, and like I said, that would be news. And that would be something big in that town. You think that would be recorded.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that
You haven't found it.
in my research,
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything.
Well, I am looking in old Oklahoma newspapers. And what I'm looking for is maybe a mention of murder and the mission that occurs multiple times within a month. Right? Because they're not going to write about it in the newspaper just one time.
Yeah.
If it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And I'm not finding anything that's like, you know, several different instances of it being mentioned. So I'm going to go with probably not. I mean, I can certainly dig deeper when I have more time.
Yeah. When we're dealing with apparitions, the historic Sooner Theater in Oklahoma, supposedly there is a white lady who haunts that theater, and apparently she is seen descending a staircase in there. But
Cool.
no other info on that except that's an apparition that you can go look for.
In the Sooner Theater, downtown Norman.
How about...
I did a play there once.
Oh yeah? What was it?
I don't remember the
Okay.
name of it. That
It was
was
Macbeth.
30-something years ago.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about the Phillips experiment? I guess in basically it was just an experiment put on at a university in Canada.
Yeah, and the idea is let's make up a completely fictional ghost and then go and try to have a seance and communicate with it.
Yeah.
And so they did this and just did it in a room. You know, walk in and was like, well, if we can do this, we can do it anywhere. So let's try to do this seance. It's called the Philip experiment. And so they gave him this whole backstory. His name is Philip and he died whenever and whatever. And so this is all set up in this story that they made for this ghost. The speculation would be, is this something we create that we interact with? Not quite like as large scale as like Jung's collective unconscious, where if I think of it, then it is now in the knowledge base and out there.
But it's like this idea that like it's like saying don't think of an elephant.
And then of course you think of an elephant.
Right.
Yeah. But this thing is just asking the room, because they were trying to do it in a traditional seance with taps and knocks. Like you answer these questions through knocks. And so they were getting knocks and they were getting answers. Their fictional answers, most of them were coming through. And so then it's like, well, all of us know this story, so we are unconsciously doing this. But the thing is, when they first tried to do it, they had all the lights on and things like that, and they're like, well, it wasn't working. So then they create the atmosphere, they dim the lights, they sit in a circle, they do all of this stuff, and then they get the rapping. And so what does that mean? Now, for me, who I really like the trickster stuff, and these things are out there, and I don't want to say that they're dangerous or they're helpful or whatever they are, but if these entities are out there and they're doing this trickster thing, you know, it's like, you know, I'm going to go talk to these people over here who are trying to talk to somebody. Maybe they don't care, you know.
Which I think that heavily links into what we have talked about in the first 4 episodes with Fox Sisters.
Sure.
I think a lot what you just said I think we've even talked about it in that episode where we brought up are the people from the other side, are they just like they were more apt to talk to these girls because they were acknowledging them, like
here's our opportunity.
This is our opportunity. Let's reach out and get heard, or show them that we're on this other side of this glass. Hey, you can they, you know. So I think it was when the Phillips experiment is actually interesting, and I want to do more reading into that. You would have to look into the pioneers of spiritual communication.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's why it was knocks and raps, you know, that they were focusing on.
Because I think it's really hard to get into a study about raps and taps and spiritual communication without the Fox Sisters ever coming up.
Susan does these AI songs for our episodes and stuff like that, and she does some fun ones. And I don't know if it's available to stream or not, but she's got one that's like Wrong Number Ouija. And it's from the perspective of a ghost who's just hanging out, but every night his Ouija board goes off, so he's like, okay, I'm going to go talk to these people. And it's like, oh, I'm nobody, but I'm going to pretend to be a pirate right now because you're asking me pirate questions.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And that goes into the whole thing about, oh, the spirits are liars. You know, it's like, well, they're not liars, they're just a goober like they were if they were spirit, if they are spirits, if they are former humans. It's like, no, that's just a goober who is like, oh, here's somebody talking to me. I'm going to go talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, they asked me a question. I'm going to answer it to the best I can. Well, I died 100 years ago. I don't know what you're asking. I don't know if you're going to get married or not. Why are you asking me if you're going to get married? I'm going to say yes, because that's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. You know. So.
Which also goes back to our Christmas episode where we say Victorians are bored as hell.
Yeah.
Hosts are bored as hell, dude.
Yeah. I may have mentioned this before, but this is like your roller skating ghosts that you talk about. So if you get enough people believing that there is a roller skating ghost, can that belief and that reinforcing that story over and over, can that create the experience? Like manifesting.
Does belief have energy?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah, I knew it.
You knew I wouldn't.
I knew
you did.
you
That
would.
was a trap for me.
This is why I'm sitting here staring at you while I'm talking about this.
I love that that was a trap for me.
I want you to know that I was innocent in this attack upon you.
It's like, oh, I feel like, okay, I have a role in this podcast now. I know who I am.
Yes,
like, I know my archetype,
yeah.
right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. This is your role. Yeah. I don't... There have been... it's Sasquatch. Let's say Sasquatch. Maybe originally it's like there was this wild man in the forest. He's a representation of the forest spirit, you know.
Mm-hmm. Like the Green Man.
Like the Green Man.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, you know, there's a monster in the woods, you know. And eventually, well, this could work in several different ways. But if you get enough people believing in the spirit of the forest, then suddenly there is a spirit of the forest. But then, was that spirit already there? Or was it created through this conscious thought of all of these other people? And then, if the spirit of the forest manifests itself, are you going to see it in its true form? Or are you going to see it in the folklore form of this is Sasquatch?
We see this idea come up over and over again with regard to gods. Like, you see it in a lot of fantasy fiction and things like that, where gods only exist because they have worshipers. Like, their existence is dependent on people worshiping them, and then as people forget the gods, they cease to exist, right?
Or at least lose their power.
Right. But in some cases, truly, they just poof.
Sure.
In fictional stories, to just poof out of existence,
Sure.
right? And so, I don't know. I love that you stared at me. I wish that all the people listening could see my face right now. Because I want to get behind that, because there is a part of me that, like, really does believe that we create magic, right? That humans create it. But at the same time, that story had to come from somewhere for it to be repeated over and over and over again. And so it had to have existed before we created it. If I'm following your logic, right?
Sure.
And that's what you're saying when you talk about what I'm interpreting as the Green Man becoming Bigfoot, right?
Sure.
The Green Man existed, air quotes, before people started telling stories about it.
These shrines all over Europe to whatever female figure eventually all became the Virgin Mary, but it was something else before. There was something there before, but we have moved on from that. Yeah.
But I can't figure out how that fits in with the roller skating ghost. Because...
Well, that's a poor example, because that probably happened, right? We
and
know
also I
that
think
happened.
it's too specific.
Sure.
I think the example doesn't work because it's too specific.
Okay.
So I'm going to shift your example.
Let's hear it.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, let's hear it.
And say that people sensed a presence. And then through the power of suggestion, right? And talking about this presence over and over again, and someone says, kind of sounded like roller skates, you know, or it sounded like wheels, or it sounded like ball bearings, right? Then that modifies and changes, and then suddenly what we're hearing is roller skates where before there was a presence.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
And so I can follow that line of thinking. What I can't follow is there was nothing and then there was roller skates.
As soon as the story came out, then that presence is now felt. Because the story exists, now we can feel it. But I would say that's what theater does. Anytime you go into a theater, you are not, you are watching actors, but there is a part, and it doesn't have to be live theater. It can be a movie. You go in there to be taken to the other.
That happens to me with books, and I'm clearly not even like, that is all happening in my mind.
Sure.
You know.
Which is why it's so hard to turn a book into a movie, because everyone has that personal experience with the book. They imagined it a certain way. I'm very interested in human behavior and consciousness, and is consciousness a flaw? Are we not supposed to be aware? And is consciousness something we all share? Is it... it gets really weird. But
That's what this is about.
It is.
It's about getting really weird.
But no, if I create a whole new monster that's only seen in my backyard and I start telling my neighbors about it, you know, whatever outlandish things I'm seeing, making up to see back here, and I tell everyone else around me, hey, I saw this thing in my backyard. Do they start suddenly seeing this thing in their backyard? And as that spreads and starts popping up in everybody's backyard in this neighborhood, is that then a cryptid born? And all of us thinking about this specific chupacabra and what it looks like, that's what they're going to see every time.
I mean, that would be an argument that I would be very inclined to employ for all of this stuff.
Sure.
Which is why you stared at me when you said it.
Yes. Could that also play into mass hysteria?
Sure. You've heard this groupthink before. Typically they're around mass tragedies, but suddenly the group, you stop acknowledging individuals in this group, and now it's just the group behaving in a certain way. And if there are people going this way in a rapid pace, then suddenly everyone's going this way in a rapid... I mean, it's just... And that would be mass hysteria, I would say. But that oftentimes mass hysteria is used as just around UFO sightings. Like, everybody saw this light in the sky, and it was super, like the Phoenix lights or whatever. Everybody saw this triangle in the sky flying real low, and everyone's like, no, it's mass hysteria. Everyone had to hallucinate that. The pilots in the sky who reported it, the people on the ground who reported it, all of you were hallucinating it. It was mass hysteria. Well, if that's the case, what made everyone's consciousness lock in suddenly and see that thing? And did they create it?
Man, it's just such a scary proposition, because to me, that's not a hop, skip, and a jump. That is just a hop to conspiracy theories being real.
Sure.
And that includes the scary ones, not the fun ones.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
And so it just, feels dangerous. But interesting to think about.
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
You brought up a comment earlier. In the real world, like, I can see the sky is blue, you know. But in my perception, is the blue that I'm seeing the same blue that you see?
Sure. Yeah, that's a huge philosophical question.
But the thing is also, we are taught that's the color blue, you know.
Right. So you may be seeing green, but you know to call it blue because everyone in your world calls it blue.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then you have the people that are colorblind.
That's right.
Yeah, and they only realize
like,
there's an issue because they see two colors that look the same to them, and people are giving them two different names.
Yeah.
Right? But like otherwise, I'm not colorblind. I cannot speak to the colorblind experience. But like in theory, otherwise, people who are colorblind don't really have a problem.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right.
This is the philosophy aspect of the philosophy tab on our podcast.
Yep, I've always wondered why that was under that, and now I do. Now I know
You
why.
should not have invited me on because it's just going to get worse.
No.
It's just going to get worse.
Well, I guess we'll let our listeners determine that. But
Whether
I don't
it's
think
worse.
it's worse. I think it's getting better. And I talk less. So that's good.
That's not good. That's not good.
Are you still on the Lost and Found over there?
No, I got done with it. It was great. But you know how I said, well, let this one wait and cut the tip off of it.
Are you back on the cactus right now?
Yeah, I'm back on it. I mean, it still has a little bit of, I can still have that taste, but it's working out. Mm-hmm. And it's actually burning right.
It seems
so
to be
far.
burning
Yeah, now it's better.
It's opening.
Yeah, but that's probably from the burnt thing. Well, do you think we have enough to
to make a podcast out of.
Or are we? Or is there stuff?
This
is
is about having a good time.
Sure.
Here. This is about Dustin and I hanging out and smoking, and
Sarah drinking
Occasionally
tea.
breaking my brain.
great.
Yeah.
I hope we do that to listeners too.
Yeah.
You
know what we didn't do?
What's that?
Did you guys not get anything wrong last time?
I know we don't have any segments this time, dude. I was thinking that way earlier when I can't remember what we were talking about, but the whole time that you guys were being smart and intellectual, I was over here like, we haven't had any segments. We don't have anything this time. This is what I want to do. We got to throw a segment in there.
Okay.
But what I want you to do is do the pre-recorded breaking news thing.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in, and then one of us saying, we don't have any.
That was
it. There you go. You just did it. You just did it. It's done.
There you go.
Are we wrapping this up?
Let's wrap it.
If you're graduating from high school, congrats.
Congrats.
If you're going to college, spend some time in your university library.
Please.
If
Hey, can I say one more thing about your university library?
Yes, of course.
Librarians love to help with research. They are sitting at that desk trying to find something to do that's not the administrative bullcrap that every librarian has to do. And if you need help with research, just go ask them. They'll be thrilled.
Okay.
They're not scary. They really want to help.
Well, unless they're glowing purple.
Some of those want to help too.
You're right.
Yeah.
Some of those want to help too. Sorry to interrupt, but I had to do my spiel.
Yeah, of course.
That's really important.
If you're not going to university, if you have already graduated, check out your local library.
Yeah.
Hang out in libraries.
Those librarians want to help you too.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'd just be glad to see you. Mm-hmm. And libraries offer so much more now than just books. One of the libraries in Ardmore, they can help you out with a passport. So
one of them has a 3D printer you can use.
Mm-hmm.
In Ardmore.
Do you think any of them do pike passes?
I don't know.
No, I didn't notice any pike pass. That's good.
We do at our dealership.
Do you really? Okay.
Congratulations on making it through another school year, whether you're graduating or not.
Mm-hmm.
You ever wondered why graduation is usually on the weekend with Mother's Day?
Well, in Oklahoma.
A lot of times it falls
I'm
that
not
way.
convinced the world exists outside Oklahoma.
Yeah. I thought they just followed what we do. Dude, there's people out there that still think that we're horse and buggy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
having shootouts in the middle of the road.
We do that
does
sometimes.
happen, but
Yeah. They're extremely exciting, but they're not very romantic.
this is how we're closing. We're getting off subject again. Sarah, if you guys could see Sarah's disappointment. Yeah. It is going right through the microphone. That little tingle you just got, that was Sarah's
The buzz of the
disappointment. Just
It was mostly me trying to figure out how to get this train back onto the tracks. There's got to be a way.
we have problems with it.
All right, yeah. So thanks again for joining us.
Don't forget to like us.
Don't forget to like and
I know.
subscribe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rate us and give us feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And check out the Instagram.
Spotify.
Check out Instagram. Check us out on
Apple Podcasts.
Patreon,
All your favorite podcasts.
Spotify.
Apps.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we're everywhere.
Definitely want to look at those VHS covers that we're
Yep.
going to post on Instagram.
Yes.
Yep.
Check out Ghoulies.
And Critters. I've never seen either of those movies.
You're
Full
kidding me.
disclosure.
Me either.
Yeah. We'll talk about that off air. How was your
notes.
tea?
My tea was great. I switched to a different tea.
What? And we didn't talk about it?
No, we didn't talk about it.
What tea did you change?
Well, part of the reason we didn't talk about it, part of the reason I didn't bring it up is because, what is this tea called?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll put a picture on Instagram.
That's a music note. And then there's a backwards letter there. I don't know what that is.
So, this is Russian tea.
Okay.
The back, the part that's in English, that's a sticker put on it. Mm-hmm. We got this at this amazing little, like, Eastern European sort of grocery store in Norman.
Cool.
The sticker on the back that's in English says, Herbal Tea, North. Quote, North. So I guess that's the name of it, is North.
Okay.
But the ingredients are buckthorn, mint, chamomile, and caraway. And it is my favorite tea currently.
Oh, wow.
But I don't, well, yeah, we can put a picture of it on Instagram. Because I really don't know what else to tell you about it. It's all written in Cyrillic. So I can't even try to pronounce it.
You wouldn't describe it as gibberish.
No, it's a real language.
Oh, okay.
My goodness. My goodness.
So you enjoyed your gibberish tea?
I did. From the Gibberlands.
Well, they're not a sponsor of us, so we can't say their name.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Even though we drop our brands all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
What about yours, T? I didn't see your face this whole podcast.
Because of the smoke?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Beast is real smoky. And the first bowl I smoked was pretty good. And the second bowl I smoked was excellent. So
it grows on you?
It didn't ruin my pipe.
Good deal. Well, it's been great.
It has been great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all. Let's do this again sometime.
Yeah.
I had a real good time, as usual.
All right. Play us off.
The door was locked, the sign turned round, the hallway lights were dim, but someone steeped a cup of tea and left it at the end. The book I lost was on my desk with nothing out of place. A pencil note in cursive said, "Be kind to those you face." They check in after closing time with whispers soft and tea still warm. They file the stories left behind and help the lonely find their form. No rattle scream or cryptic grief, just kindness that forgot to leave. The Dewey codes still hum with grace in aisles where dust might settle. You'll feel a shift, a breath of lace, a ghost who never met the devil. They weren't the kind to raise their voice, but books remember tone. They catalog the restless dreams and leave the lights half on. They check in after closing time with hands like wind on paperbacks. They guide the heart, they mend the spine, they guard the silence in the stacks. They do not haunt, they softly weave a life that simply didn't leave. So sip your tea and turn the page. If something shifts, don't be afraid. Some souls don't go, they just believe in stories worth the time to read.